Good morning. Welcome to Ramblings with Joe. I'm back on schedule. I'm starting to get over this cold and thought I better get up and do a podcast. I was talking about New York City yesterday as I was leaving work with a friend, and they've got some problems up in New York City. So they voted in a socialist mayor. He's not bashful about being a socialist. He's quite content with being labeled a socialist. I don't think that he expects that this is going to work. I don't think that he believes that socialism is the answers for the problem of New York City. I think it was a political move because so much of the younger population now is not familiar with the socialist style of government. So I have a list here, and this list is a list of countries that were socialist and are socialist or are trying socialism. Cambodia from 75 to 79 had a catastrophic economic failure. Ethiopia, we know what happened to Ethiopia from 69 to 91. The famine there was just off the charts. The amount of people that starved to death. Somalia, we know the violent history of Somalia. That was from 69 to 91. Afghanistan, 78 to 92. They were backed by the Soviet Union. And here's another short list. Angola, Mozambique, Benin, Congo, South Yemen. There are a very long list of countries that tried socialism and had to abandon it because of it's built into the system. It's going to fail. Currently, we have Venezuela, Cuba, and North Korea. All you have to do is think about the economic woes of these three current socialist countries. Obviously, Venezuela, they're in dire straits. And this was before any intervention by the current administration here in America. They were in a lot of trouble before President Trump went in and kidnapped their dictator. I refuse to call him an elected leader because he wasn't. Cuba, well, we know Cuba has just been a failure and continues to suffer through shortages. Nobody's dying to swim from Florida to Cuba, but we always have people trying to get from Cuba to Florida who are drowning and dying and taking that risk because it's worth it. And North Korea, again, just constant economic failure and people starving to death. And it's just, so why does socialism always seem doomed to failure? And I believe it is doomed to failure. It's really easy. And it's wrapped up in that idiom that people love to quote. And the reason they love to quote it is because it's true. And that is socialism only works until the socialists run out of other people's money. Money is just a form of labor or services and goods. It's a way to barter. So what they're really saying is socialism only works until they can no longer take advantage of people who aren't socialists. It has been said many times. It's just not been done right. It's been done over and over and over again. And the reason it doesn't work is because built into each one of us human beings is this need to advance, this need to move forward within society. And part of that is greed. I'm a libertarian. And as a libertarian, I do not believe that all greed is inherently bad. It is a motivator toward advancement. It is a motivator to make individuals move forward to gain more for themselves and their families. And to deny that that is part of human nature, well, it's just self-denial. You don't see it within yourself. When you look around at the people who are pushing for socialism, they're not driving a 1950s car. They're usually driving a very nice car. As a matter of fact, the people on the higher economic end of the scale who are pushing for socialism, well, they're driving force for socialism because they have the money to put the message out, but they're almost always in huge SUVs, limousines, and private jets. Does that sound like someone pushing for socialism? It does not. So we have a mayor of New York. Mamdani did not hide his socialist leanings. He embraced them. And I believe he did that because the young people of today are just not educated on socialism. Because in their minds, the only thing I can think of is in their minds, socialism seems fair. Fairness doesn't get anything done. Fairness, equality, economic equality without competition doesn't get anything done. Communism doesn't work. It's been proved over and over again. One of the things that socialists are very fond of saying is that it's because of outside influence, because outside sources influenced what's going on with the social experiment. It always will be, because there's always going to be those people who are willing to step on other people, whether it's from outside influences or from within the socialist economy and governance system itself. That's why it's so easy for a dictator to rise in socialism. Yeah, Hitler led the socialist I think it was called the National Socialist Party. Socialism makes it easy for a dictator to take control and rise to the top. It's just built into the system, because if you allow a leader to lead you down the road of socialism, you're susceptible to that leader becoming a totalitarian or dictator or whatever you want to call it. And that's where it goes. Mamdani is going to fail because when he went into office, that money that he needs to make socialism falsely successful for a little while doesn't exist. So as soon as he went into office, as soon as he won, the larger companies started leaving New York City. I'm sure that there are going to be some financial companies that don't produce a product or fly under the radar or find a way not to pay these new increasing taxes that Mamdani wants to put out there. If a company wants to be successful, especially in a competitive situation like the capitalist economic system here in America, they've got to have a low cost to create services or goods. And that's not possible if they're being taxed at a higher rate than everybody else in the country. So I think the exodus from New York City is going to continue to happen. I feel bad for the people of New York City because they did indeed vote in a socialist. But that socialist took over New York City with a current debt of over $100 billion. He does not have the ability to inflate the monetary system. He can't print money, so that's out and a different story. But this is typically what happens within a socialist regime. A perfect example is Venezuela today. They're on what do you call it? Runaway inflation. It is just phenomenal how worthless their money is. So the idea that he can go in there now and make it successful when he does not have access to other people's money, to other people's services and goods, their labor. He's doomed to failure from the outset. He already has the people that kind of put him in office turning on him. There are, I think, 5 deputy mayors of New York City. The people that put him in office, the powers that be in New York City, if you will, are very upset that he did not put an African American as one of the deputy mayors. So I'm sure he'll change that very quickly. I'm sure he'll find a way, because there's no limit on the amount of deputy mayors. There's no set amount of deputy mayors. So I'm sure he'll appoint one very quickly. Doesn't matter. He doesn't have the funds to do what he wants to do. So his idea is to tax the companies. Well, when you make a company uncompetitive, they have to do one of 2 things. They have to fail because they can no longer compete in the current market, or they move someplace they can compete. They find a better way to compete. They find, in this case, lower taxes. There are many examples of successful socialist programs. I think Norway and Sweden have very successful medical, socialist style medical programs, they are supported by a capitalist economic system. The only time a socialist program will work is if it has an income from somewhere other than a socialist program. So I'm very fond of saying here in America, we have very, very few socialist programs, but we do have some. Some of the more successful ones are fire stations, fire departments within counties and cities. Those are successful, but they're successful because they're using the funds of capitalism. Hospitals right now are a good example of a failing socialist system. In my opinion, is that that's because the hospitals are so intertwined with the medical companies that have bought them out and are running them. And those leaders are also leaders of the pharmaceutical industry. They're at the government trough, and they're just helping themselves to all that money that the government's making possible. So Mamdani, he is doomed to failure. And 1 month and a half after he was sworn in as mayor, the cracks in the system are already starting to show. He does not have the funds. It's simply non-existent. I'm not sure if Trump is going to shore him up, if the president of the United States is going to send funds to help him maintain. I know that President Trump is very fond of New York City. However, there are signs that he may not be willing to do that. I think it would be a huge mistake not to let Mamdani's role as mayor be a failure. Younger Americans who think that socialism is possible, they are being taught by idealistic teachers who are not giving them the truth. The teachings that, as you can see, the fire department and the police department and some of these foreign medical departments are very successful because they're socialist. No, they're successful because they're getting the funds from a capitalist system. That's the only reason they're successful. You pull that funding out and they fall apart. And those countries where those Canada, the Netherlands, etc., have those socialist medical situations, they put socialism aside. They're not doing it because they realized it didn't work. With the exception of Canada, they may be in the midst of finding out that it doesn't work now. New York City Mayor Mamdani is doomed to failure. The socialist dream that he has will only work while he has access to other people's money, and they do not have that access. President Trump can stretch it out. President Trump can bail it out, but that means it's not working. It needs a bailout. I'm off to work. I'm going to hit the ground running today. I got up early, actually set an alarm, and it woke me up at 5 o'clock. I've been told that I need to cut back on my caffeine intake. That's so hurtful. I really enjoy my coffee. Instead of a bucket and a half of coffee, I'm going to just do a bucket. Let's see how that works out. Maybe I can start sleeping better at night. I hope you go out and have a great day. I hope you go out there and you experience some ethical greed. You try on the idea and accept the idea that what you're doing for the betterment of your family and yourself. And in doing so, you're going to increase the quality of the community around you. That's how capitalism works. And I hope you find peace, love, and dream. Until next time, arrivederci.